The morning, Daphne Owens walked into the quarterly shareholder meeting with coffee stains on her blouse, and her presentation notes scattered across 3 different devices. She had no idea her life was about to change completely. She rushed through the glass doors of Morrison Industries headquarters, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she tried to smooth down her auburn hair that had frizzed in the unexpected rain. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like an eternity, and when she finally burst into the conference room, 20 pairs of eyes turned toward her. Heat flooded her cheeks as she mumbled an apology and slid into the only empty seat near the back. The CEO stood at the front of the room, his presence commanding even in the simple charcoal suit he wore. Adam Morrison was known throughout the fashion retail industry as a brilliant strategist who had transformed his family's modest clothing company into a billion-dollar empire before he turned 35. Now, at 37, his reputation preceded him everywhere he went. Daphne had seen his face in business magazines and on the company website, but this was the first time she had been in the same room with him. She pulled out her tablet and tried to focus on the presentation, but her mind kept wandering to the disaster that was her morning. Her alarm had failed to go off, her roommate had used the last of the coffee, and she had stepped in a puddle that soaked through her only pair of comfortable work shoes. Now she sat here, looking completely unprofessional, while the CEO discussed expansion strategies and market analysis. "Miss Owens," her head snapped up. Adam Morrison was looking directly at her, his green eyes steady and patient. "I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I asked if you had the demographic breakdown for the southwestern region," he said. There was no irritation in his tone, just a simple request. Daphne fumbled with her tablet, her fingers slipping on the screen. "Yes, I have it right here. Just give me 1 second." The room waited in uncomfortable silence while she navigated through her files. She could feel sweat forming on her palms. Finally, she found the document and stood up, walking to the front of the room to connect her tablet to the main display. As she passed Adam, she thought she heard him say something under his breath, but she was too focused on not tripping to pay attention. The presentation went smoothly after that. Daphne had spent weeks compiling the data, and despite her rocky start, she knew her material inside and out. She discussed purchasing patterns, age demographics, and regional preferences with growing confidence. When she finished, several people nodded approvingly, and she returned to her seat feeling slightly less mortified. The meeting continued for another hour. Daphne took notes and tried to ignore the fact that she could feel Adam's gaze drift in her direction several times. She told herself she was being paranoid, that the CEO of a billion-dollar company had better things to do than pay attention to one junior analyst who had shown up late and disheveled. When the meeting finally adjourned, Daphne gathered her things quickly, eager to escape to her cubicle and hide for the rest of the day. She was almost to the door when a hand touched her elbow. "Miss Owens, do you have a moment?" She turned to find Adam standing behind her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive. "Of course, Mr. Morrison," she said, her stomach twisting with anxiety. This was it. He was going to reprimand her for being late, for looking unprofessional, for not being immediately ready with the data he had requested. "Walk with me," he said simply, and headed toward the hallway. Daphne followed, her mind racing through possible scenarios. They walked past the elevators, past the executive offices, until they reached a small balcony that overlooked the city. Rain still fell in a light drizzle, creating a soft curtain between them and the buildings beyond. Adam leaned against the railing and looked out at the skyline. "You did excellent work on that demographic analysis," he said. "The level of detail was impressive." "Thank you," Daphne replied, uncertain where this conversation was headed. "I noticed something during the meeting," he continued, turning to face her. His expression was serious, thoughtful. "When you were presenting, you mentioned that the data showed a significant gap in our customer base. Women aged 25 to 35 in middle-income brackets. You said we were missing an entire demographic that should be our core audience." "Yes," Daphne said slowly. "The numbers showed that, while we have strong sales in the luxury market and in the budget sector, we're losing customers right in the middle. Women who want quality but can't quite afford our premium lines." Adam nodded. "Everyone else in that room heard you say it. They all have the same data you do. But do you know what I noticed?" Daphne shook her head. "No one else seemed to think it mattered," he said quietly. "They saw the numbers as just another data point, but you understood what it meant. You realized that we're failing an entire group of women who need what we could offer them." Something in his voice made Daphne look up at him more carefully. There was an intensity in his eyes that hadn't been there during the meeting. "I said something during your presentation," Adam continued, his voice dropping even lower. "I said, finally, someone who sees them. I thought I said it to myself, but I realized you might have heard me. Did you?" Daphne's breath caught. She had heard something, a quiet comment that had barely registered in her nervous state. "I wasn't sure," she admitted. "I thought maybe I imagined it." "You didn't imagine it," Adam said. He moved closer, just slightly, but enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "I've been trying to get my executive team to pay attention to that gap for 2 years. Everyone keeps pushing for higher-end luxury or fast fashion, but nobody wants to focus on the middle. The women who work hard, who budget carefully, who deserve quality clothing that doesn't cost half their paycheck. Nobody sees them." "But you do," Daphne said softly. "I do," he confirmed. "And apparently so do you. That's rare, Miss Owens. That kind of awareness, that kind of empathy in business analysis. It's rare." Daphne felt something shift in the air between them. This wasn't a professional conversation anymore, or at least not entirely. There was something personal in the way he looked at her, something that made her heart beat faster. "I'd like you to work on a project for me," Adam said. "Directly. I want to develop a new line specifically targeting that demographic you identified. Quality materials, reasonable prices, practical designs. And I want you to lead the market research." "Me?" Daphne's voice came out higher than she intended. "Mr. Morrison, I'm just a junior analyst. There are people with much more experience who could handle something like this." "Experience isn't the same as understanding," Adam replied. "And I need someone who understands. Will you do it?" How could she say no? This was the opportunity of a lifetime, the kind of career-making project that analysts dreamed about. "Yes," she said. "Absolutely yes." Adam smiled then, a genuine smile that transformed his entire face. He had seemed so serious and intimidating before, but now he looked almost boyish, excited. "Good. We'll start Monday. 9 o'clock, my office. Come prepared with initial thoughts, but don't overthink it. I want your instincts, not a polished presentation." "I'll be there," Daphne promised. "And Miss Owens," he said as she turned to leave, "the coffee stain and the wet hair, they didn't matter. What mattered was what you had to say." Daphne walked back to her cubicle in a daze. She sat down at her desk and stared at her computer screen without seeing it. What had just happened? The CEO had not only praised her work but had given her a major project and told her that someone had finally paid attention to something he cared deeply about. The way he had looked at her on that balcony, the intensity in his voice when he spoke about the women they were failing. It all felt significant in a way she couldn't quite define. "Earth to Daphne," a voice said, and she looked up to see her friend and cubicle neighbor, Rachel, leaning over the partition. "What happened to you? You've been sitting there staring at nothing for 10 minutes. "I just got assigned to a project," Daphne said slowly. "By Adam Morrison. Directly." Rachel's eyes widened. "The CEO? What kind of project?" Daphne explained, and Rachel let out a low whistle. "That's huge. Do you know how many people would kill for that kind of opportunity? You're going to be working directly with him, apparently," Daphne said, still trying to process it all. "Is he as intimidating up close as he seems from a distance?" Rachel asked. Daphne thought about the conversation on the balcony, the way Adam had spoken about the customers they were missing, the quiet passion in his voice. "No," she said finally. "He's not intimidating, he's just focused. Intense maybe, but not scary." "Lucky you," Rachel said with a grin. "Half the women in this building have crushes on him. Single, brilliant, gorgeous, and a billionaire. He's like something out of a romance novel." "I'm not interested in him like that," Daphne protested, but even as she said it, she felt a flutter in her stomach. She pushed the feeling away. This was business, an incredible professional opportunity. She couldn't afford to complicate it with some ridiculous attraction to her boss. The rest of the week passed in a blur. Daphne spent every spare moment researching, compiling notes, and thinking about the project. She analyzed competitor pricing, studied fashion trends, and even spent an entire Saturday afternoon walking through department stores, observing women shopping and noting what they picked up, what they put back, and what they ultimately bought. By Monday morning, she had 3 notebooks full of ideas and observations. She dressed carefully in her best navy suit, arrived at the office an hour early, and was waiting outside Adam's door at exactly 9 o'clock. His assistant, a friendly woman named Patricia who looked to be in her 50s, smiled at her. "Go right in, dear. He's expecting you." Daphne knocked once and entered. Adam's office was larger than she had expected, but not ostentatious. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the furniture was modern but comfortable. Adam sat behind a massive desk, but when he saw her, he stood and gestured to a seating area with 2 sofas and a coffee table. "Let's sit here," he said. "This doesn't need to be formal." Daphne settled onto one of the sofas, and Adam took the other, sitting across from her. He had rolled up his shirt sleeves, and she noticed for the first time that he had a small scar on his left forearm. "So," he said, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "Tell me what you've been thinking." Daphne took a deep breath and launched into her observations. She talked about the women she had watched shopping, how they would finger quality fabrics longingly before moving to cheaper alternatives, how they checked price tags first and quality second, because they had to make their money stretch. She discussed the gap between fast fashion that fell apart after 3 washes and luxury items that cost more than a week's salary. Adam listened intently, occasionally asking questions or making notes. As she talked, Daphne felt herself relaxing. This wasn't like presenting to the board. This was a conversation between 2 people who both cared about solving a problem. "You get it," Adam said when she paused for breath. "You really get it. These women aren't a demographic to you. They're real people." "They're me," Daphne admitted. "Or they were me a few years ago. Working 2 jobs to pay for college, needing professional clothes for interviews, but unable to afford anything decent. I wore the same 3 outfits for an entire year because that was all I had, and I felt invisible because of it." Something flickered in Adam's expression. "Tell me about that," he said quietly. "About feeling invisible." Daphne hesitated. This was personal, maybe too personal for a business meeting, but something about the way he asked, the genuine interest in his eyes, made her want to answer. "When you can't afford to dress well," People make assumptions, she said. They assume you're not competent, not professional, not worth their time. I once didn't get a job I was qualified for because the interviewer said I didn't look like I would fit their company culture. What she meant was that my cheap suit didn't match their expensive image. I was qualified, I was smart, I would have been good at the job, but nobody saw past the clothes. That's exactly what I want to change, Adam said, his voice intense. That's why this project matters so much to me. Can I ask why? Daphne ventured. Why does this matter so much to you personally? Adam was quiet for a moment, and Daphne worried she had overstepped. Then he stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. My mother worked as a secretary for 40 years, he said. She was smart, capable, and she had to dress professionally every day on a salary that barely covered rent and groceries. I watched her mend the same clothes over and over, watched her apologize for not looking as polished as the women who made 10 times what she did. When I took over this company, I promised myself I would build something that would have helped her. But I got caught up in profit margins and market share, and I lost sight of that promise. He turned back to face her, and the vulnerability in his expression made Daphne's chest tighten. Until I heard what you said in that meeting, he continued. Until someone else finally paid attention to the women I had forgotten about. That's why this matters. That's why you matter to this project. Daphne stood and walked over to the window, standing beside him. Then let's make it happen, she said. Let's build something that matters. They stood there for a moment, side by side, looking out at the city. Daphne was acutely aware of how close they were, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. She glanced up at him and found him already looking at her, and something passed between them that had nothing to do with business or fashion or market demographics. We should get back to work, Adam said, but he didn't move away. We should, Daphne agreed, but she didn't move either. Finally, Adam stepped back, breaking the moment. Let's set up a schedule. I want to meet twice a week to discuss progress. And I want you to have full access to our design team, manufacturing contacts, and financial data. Whatever you need. That's a lot of trust to put in a junior analyst, Daphne said. You're not just a junior analyst anymore, Adam replied. As of today, you're the director of the Accessible Quality Initiative. That's what we're calling this project. It comes with a new title, a raise, and an office on this floor. Daphne stared at him. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Patricia will have everything arranged by this afternoon. If you're going to lead this project, you need the authority and resources to do it properly. I don't know what to say, Daphne said honestly. Say you'll do it justice, Adam said. Say you'll make it matter. I will, Daphne promised. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Adam said, and the confidence in his voice made her believe it too. The next few weeks were the most intense and exhilarating of Daphne's life. She moved into her new office, a bright corner space with windows that overlooked the park. She assembled a small team of designers and researchers, and together they dove into the project with single-minded focus. They interviewed hundreds of women, created dozens of prototype designs, and tested fabrics until they found the perfect balance of quality and cost-effectiveness. Through it all, Adam was present. He attended their team meetings, reviewed their findings, and offered insights that consistently moved the project forward. But more than that, he was present for Daphne personally. He brought her coffee when she worked late, remembered details about her life that she had mentioned in passing, and somehow always knew when she needed encouragement or a different perspective. They fell into a rhythm of working together that felt natural, effortless. Daphne found herself looking forward to their twice-weekly meetings. And then, those meetings started extending longer, turning into working lunches, and then dinners when they both stayed late at the office. They talked about business, about fashion, about their lives and dreams and everything in between. One evening, about 2 months into the project, they were in Daphne's office reviewing fabric samples when Adam suddenly asked, "Why did you choose fashion retail?" Daphne looked up from the swatches spread across her desk. "What do you mean? You're brilliant with data and analysis. You could work in finance, tech, consulting, any industry you wanted. So why fashion?" Daphne set down the sample she had been holding and leaned back in her chair. "Because fashion isn't really about clothes," she said. "It's about how people see themselves and how the world sees them. It's about confidence and identity and belonging. Those cheap suits I wore when I was struggling, they weren't just uncomfortable. They made me feel less than, like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. I wanted to work in an industry where I could help change that." Adam was watching her with that intense focus she had come to recognize, the look that meant he was really listening, really considering what she said. "You have a gift for seeing the person behind the numbers," he said. "It's rare in this business, it's rare anywhere." "You do the same thing," Daphne pointed out. "That's why you started this project." "I used to," Adam said quietly, "but I lost it for a while. Building the company, competing in the market, proving myself to the board and the shareholders. I got caught up in the game and forgot why I was playing." "What made you remember?" Daphne asked. Adam stood and walked to her window, a habit she had noticed he had when he was thinking deeply. "Do you want the honest answer?" he asked. "Always." He turned to face her, and there was something in his expression that made Daphne's pulse quicken. "You did," he said. "Hearing you speak in that meeting, seeing someone else who understood what mattered, it reminded me of who I wanted to be." Daphne's breath caught. The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken words. She stood and walked toward him, stopping a few feet away. "Adam," she said, using his first name for the first time outside of a casual group setting. "What are we doing here?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I know what I should be doing. I should be maintaining professional boundaries, keeping this about the project and nothing else. But Daphne, I can't stop thinking about you. The way your mind works, the passion you bring to everything you do, the way you care about people even when they're just statistics on a spreadsheet. I haven't felt this way about anyone in years, maybe ever." Daphne's heart was racing. "I feel it too," she whispered. "But you're the CEO and I'm working on your project. This could complicate everything." "I know," Adam said. He moved closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. "If you want me to keep my distance, if you want this to stay purely professional, I will. I promise you that. This project is important, and I won't let my feelings jeopardize it or your career, but I needed you to know that the feelings are there." Daphne stood frozen, torn between the safe choice and what her heart was screaming at her to do. She thought about professionalism and complications, and all the ways this could go wrong. And then she thought about the way Adam looked at her, really looked at her, the way he listened when she spoke, the way he had given her this opportunity and believed in her when nobody else had. "What if I don't want you to keep your distance?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Adam's expression transformed, hope and joy and something deeper flooding his features. "Then I would ask if I could take you to dinner, not a working dinner, a real date." "Yes," Daphne said, and then he was kissing her, his hands gentle on her face as he drew her close. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, and then it deepened into something that made Daphne's knees weak. She grabbed the front of his shirt to steady herself, and he pulled her closer, one arm wrapping around her waist. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," he admitted. "Why didn't you?" Daphne asked, her fingers still twisted in his shirt. "Because I needed to be sure you felt the same way." he said. "I never want you to feel pressured or like your job depends on anything other than your talent and hard work." "I feel the same way," Daphne assured him. "I've been trying not to, telling myself it was just gratitude or admiration for your business sense, but it's more than that. So much more." They stood there holding each other for a long moment, the fabric samples forgotten on the desk behind them. Finally, Adam pulled back slightly and smiled. "We should probably discuss how we're going to handle this. The relationship, I mean." "We keep it private for now," Daphne suggested. "At least until after the project launches. I don't want anyone to think I got this position or these opportunities because of anything other than my work." "Agreed," Adam said. "Though I reserve the right to look at you adoringly during meetings." Daphne laughed, the sound light and genuine. "I think I can allow that." Their first real date was the following Saturday. Adam picked her up from her apartment in his own car, not a company vehicle or a driver, and he wore jeans and a casual button-down instead of one of his usual suits. He looked younger, more relaxed, and incredibly handsome. "Where are we going?" Daphne asked as they drove through the city. "It's a surprise," Adam said, glancing over with a grin. "But I promise you'll like it." They ended up at a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood Daphne didn't recognize. It was family-owned, cozy, with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Not at all the kind of place she would have expected a billionaire CEO to choose for a first date. "This is perfect," she said as they were seated at a corner table. "It's been my favorite place since college," Adam explained. "When I was building the company, I used to come here and eat cheap pasta while I worked on business plans. The owner, Marco, he used to let me stay hours after closing, just working at this very table. He believed in me before I had any reason to believe in myself." The evening unfolded like a dream. They talked and laughed, shared plates of pasta and sipped red wine, and for the first time, Daphne saw Adam completely relaxed. He told her stories about building the company from almost nothing, about the mistakes he had made and the lessons he had learned. She told him about growing up in a small town in Ohio, about her mother who had raised her alone after her father left, about working her way through college with scholarships and 3 part-time jobs. "Your mother must be incredibly proud of you," Adam said. "She is," Daphne said, her voice soft. "She cried when I got the job at Morrison Industries. She kept saying her daughter was going to work at a real company, with benefits and everything." "I'd like to meet her someday," Adam said. And the casual way he said it, like meeting her mother was a natural progression of their relationship, made Daphne's heart skip. After dinner, they walked through the neighborhood, their hands linked together. The evening was warm, the streets quiet, and Daphne felt happier than she could remember being in years. "Can I tell you something?" Adam said as they paused at a small park. "Anything," Daphne replied. "I was in a serious relationship about 3 years ago," he said. "Her name was Victoria. She was from one of the old money families, and on paper, we were perfect together. But she never understood why the company mattered to me beyond the money. She didn't understand why I worked so hard, why I cared about the employees and the customers and the mission. To her, it was just a business, a means to an end. We were together for 2 years, and I don't think she ever really knew me." Daphne squeezed his hand. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that what we have, it's different," Adam said. "You see me. You understand what drives me, what matters to me. And I feel like I see you too, really see you. That's rare, Daphne, that's precious." "I know," Daphne said. She reached up and touched his face, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw. "I feel like I've been waiting my whole life for someone to really pay attention, to really see me beyond the surface. And then you did. In that meeting on the balcony, every day since. You pay attention." "I always will," Adam promised, and then he kissed her again, soft and sweet under the streetlights. The weeks turned into months, and their relationship deepened even as the project moved forward. They were careful at work, maintaining professionalism in meetings and public interactions. But they stole moments together, working late in her office with the door closed, sharing quiet lunches on the balcony where they had first really talked, finding excuses to collaborate that let them be near each other. The project itself was exceeding all expectations. The design team had created a stunning collection of versatile, high-quality pieces at prices that the target demographic could actually afford. They had secured manufacturing partners who could maintain quality while keeping costs reasonable. Focus groups were responding enthusiastically, and projections showed that the line could capture a significant market share within the first year. 6 months after that first meeting, they were ready to launch. The collection was complete, marketing materials prepared, and retail partnerships established. The board had approved a massive rollout, and industry publications were already buzzing about Morrison Industries' bold new direction. The night before the launch event, Daphne and Adam were alone in his office, reviewing final details. It was late past midnight, and the building was empty except for security. "We did it," Daphne said, leaning back in her chair with exhausted satisfaction. "This is really happening." "You did it," Adam corrected. "This was your vision, your passion. I just gave you the resources." "We did it together," Daphne insisted. "That's what matters." Adam stood and walked around his desk, pulling her to her feet. "Come here," he said, leading her to the windows that overlooked the glittering city. "Look at that. Tomorrow we're going to change things for thousands of women out there. We're going to make them feel seen, valued, worthy. Because of you." "Because of us," Daphne said again. She turned in his arms to face him. "Adam, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" he asked, his hand settling on her waist. "I'm in love with you," Daphne said. The words came out in a rush, nervous and certain all at once. "I know we've only been together for 6 months, and maybe it's too soon to say it, but I can't keep it inside anymore. I love you. I love your passion and your integrity and the way you remember small details and the way you make me feel like I matter. I love you." Adam's face broke into the brightest smile she had ever seen on him. "Daphne, I have been in love with you since that day on the balcony when you understood what I had been trying to say for years. Maybe before that, maybe from the moment you stood up in that meeting and spoke with such conviction about women nobody else wanted to see. I love you so much it terrifies me." He kissed her then, deep and passionate, and Daphne melted into him. They stayed there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the city lights and dreaming about tomorrow. The launch event was a spectacular success. Held at a trendy downtown venue, it drew fashion editors, retail buyers, influencers, and representatives from women's organizations. But more importantly, it drew regular women, the exact demographic they had designed for, who had been invited to see themselves represented in a major fashion launch for the first time. Daphne stood on the stage, looking out at the crowd, and felt overwhelming gratitude. Adam stood beside her, and when it came time for speeches, he insisted she go first. "6 months ago, I stood in a meeting and pointed out that our industry was failing an entire group of women," Daphne began. "Women who work hard, who deserve quality, who want to feel confident and professional without breaking the bank. Women who had been invisible for too long. Today, with the Accessible Quality Initiative, we're changing that. Today, we're saying that everyone deserves to be seen." The applause was thunderous. Women in the audience were nodding, some with tears in their eyes. Daphne saw one woman in particular, probably in her late 20s, wearing clothes that looked worn but carefully maintained, and she was clapping so hard her hands must have hurt. Daphne caught her eye and smiled, and the woman smiled back, and in that moment, Daphne knew they had succeeded. Adam spoke next, and he talked about his mother, about the promise he had made and forgotten and remembered again. He talked about the importance of seeing people, really seeing them, and about how one person's voice could change everything. And when he thanked Daphne, his eyes met hers with such love and pride that the entire room could see it. After the formal presentation, as guests mingled and examined the collection, reporters cornered both Daphne and Adam for interviews. One particularly persistent journalist from a major fashion magazine pulled Adam aside. "Mr. Morrison, there are rumors about your relationship with Miss Owens. Would you care to comment?" Adam glanced across the room to where Daphne was talking with a group of buyers. She looked radiant in a dress from their new collection, a deep blue that made her auburn hair shine. She was laughing at something someone said, animated and alive, and he felt his chest tighten with love. "Yes," he said, surprising the journalist. "I can confirm that Daphne Owens and I are in a relationship. We wanted to keep it private until after the launch because we both felt strongly that this project needed to be judged on its own merits, on Daphne's incredible talent and hard work, not on our personal connection. But I'm done hiding how I feel about her. She's brilliant, compassionate, and she's changed my life in every possible way." The journalist's eyes widened. "That's quite a statement, Mr. Morrison." "It's the truth," Adam said simply. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go find her." He made his way across the room, and when he reached Daphne, he didn't hesitate. He took her hand, pulled her close, and kissed her in front of everyone. The room fell silent for a moment, and then erupted in cheers and applause. When they finally broke apart, Daphne was blushing furiously. "What was that for?" she asked, though she was smiling. "I told a reporter about us," Adam said. "I hope that's okay. I just couldn't pretend anymore that you're not the most important person in my life." Daphne looked around at the faces watching them, some curious, some delighted, some knowing. She saw her team smiling, saw Patricia dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, saw the journalist Adam had been talking to scribbling furiously in a notebook. "It's more than okay," she said. "It's perfect." The Accessible Quality Initiative exceeded every projection. Within 3 months, it was the fastest-growing line Morrison Industries had ever launched. Women across the country were sharing photos of themselves in the clothes, talking about how the pieces made them feel professional and confident, how they could finally afford quality that lasted. The company's stock price soared and competitors scrambled to develop similar offerings. But for Daphne, the real success came in the letters. Women wrote to her personally, hundreds of them, sharing their stories. Single mothers who could finally afford interview suits. Recent graduates who could build professional wardrobes without going into debt. Women who had felt invisible finally feeling seen. One letter in particular moved her to tears. It was from a woman named Sarah who worked as a paralegal and had struggled for years to afford appropriate work clothes. "I used to feel like I had to choose between looking professional and paying my bills," Sarah wrote. "Your collection gave me both. For the first time in my career, I feel like I belong. Thank you for seeing people like me." Daphne showed the letter to Adam that evening as they sat in his apartment, a penthouse overlooking the city that had slowly become their shared space. He read it carefully, then set it aside and pulled her into his arms. "Your mother would be so proud," he said. "She is," Daphne replied. "I called her last week and she couldn't stop crying. She said I had done what she always dreamed of doing, making things better for women like her." "When can I meet her?" Adam asked. "I know I've said it before, but I mean it. I want to meet the woman who raised you." How about next month? Daphne suggested. We could drive up for the weekend, though I should warn you she's going to interrogate you thoroughly. She's very protective. I would expect nothing less, Adam said with a smile. I'll prepare my best. I'm serious about your daughter's speech. You'd better, Daphne teased. She's tough. They did drive up the following month, taking Adam's car and leaving before dawn on a Friday morning. Daphne's childhood town was 6 hours away, a small place called Millbrook where everyone knew everyone and life moved at a different pace than the city. Daphne's mother, Deanne, lived in a modest house on a tree-lined street. She came out onto the porch as they pulled up, and Daphne jumped out of the car to embrace her. "Mom, this is Adam," Daphne said, pulling him forward. "Adam, my mom, Deanne." Deanne looked Adam up and down with a mother's critical eye. She was a slim woman in her 50s with the same auburn hair as her daughter, though hers was streaked with gray. "So you're the billionaire," she said bluntly. "I am," Adam said, not flinching from her scrutiny. "But more importantly, I'm the man who loves your daughter." Something in Deanne's expression softened. "Come inside," she said. "I made coffee and pie." The weekend was a revelation. Adam charmed Deanne with his genuine interest in her stories and his obvious devotion to Daphne. He insisted on helping with dishes, on fixing a loose cabinet hinge in the kitchen, on listening attentively to Deanne's tales of raising Daphne alone. And Deanne, despite her initial skepticism about the wealthy CEO dating her daughter, found herself liking him immensely. On Saturday evening, while Daphne was in the shower, Deanne cornered Adam on the back porch where he was watching the sunset. "Can I ask you something?" she said, settling into the chair beside him. "Of course," Adam replied. "Why my daughter?" Deanne asked. "You could have anyone. Why Daphne?" Adam was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. "Because she sees people," he said finally. "In a world where so many people look right through others, Daphne really sees them. She saw women that everyone else in my company ignored. She saw what mattered to me when I had almost forgotten it myself. And she sees me, not the money or the title or the image, but who I really am. I've waited my whole life for someone like her." Deanne's eyes glistened with tears. "She's always been like that," she said softly. Even as a little girl, she would notice things others missed. The kid sitting alone at lunch, the neighbor who needed help, the small kindnesses that make life bearable. I used to worry that the world would make her hard, that she'd have to stop caring so much to survive. But she didn't. She stayed soft. "I'll protect that softness," Adam promised. "I'll spend the rest of my life making sure she never regrets staying open and caring." "See that you do," Deanne said, but she was smiling. "Because if you hurt her, billionaire or not, you'll answer to me." "I would expect nothing less," Adam said, echoing the words he had said to Daphne. That night, as they lay in Daphne's childhood bed in her tiny room that still had posters on the walls from high school, Adam pulled her close. "Your mother is incredible," he said. "I see where you get your strength." "She likes you," Daphne said. "She told me this afternoon that she approves, which is high praise from her. She's never liked anyone I've dated." "That's because you were waiting for me," Adam said, kissing the top of her head. "Just like I was waiting for you." They drove back to the city on Sunday evening, and as they crossed back into the metropolitan area with its lights and noise and endless energy, Adam reached over and took Daphne's hand. "Move in with me," he said suddenly. "I know we haven't talked about it, but I hate the nights when you're at your apartment and I'm at mine. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to build a life with you." Daphne's heart raced. "Are you sure?" she asked. "That's a big step." "I've never been more sure of anything," Adam said. "I love you, Daphne. I want everything with you." "I want everything with you too," Daphne said, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I'll move in with you. the transition was easier than Daphne expected. She had never accumulated much stuff, still living with the mindset of someone who had spent years on a tight budget. Within 2 weeks, her belongings were integrated into Adam's penthouse, and it felt like home in a way her various apartments never had. They fell into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings meant coffee on the balcony, watching the city wake up. Evenings meant cooking together in the massive kitchen, or takeout on the couch, or working side by side in the home office Adam had insisted they create. Weekends meant exploring the city, trying new restaurants, visiting museums, or simply staying in bed late talking about everything and nothing. At work, their relationship was an open secret. Everyone knew, but it didn't matter because Daphne had proven herself beyond any doubt. The Accessible Quality Initiative had made her a respected figure in the industry. And when she spoke in meetings, people listened not because she was dating the CEO, but because she consistently had valuable insights. Adam made sure of that. He never showed her favoritism in professional settings, never undermined her authority, or suggested she needed his approval. He treated her as the competent professional she was, and their colleagues respected them both for it. A year after the launch, Morrison Industries held its annual gala, a black tie event that drew the entire fashion industry. Daphne wore a stunning gown from their collection, a custom piece in deep emerald that made her look like a princess. Adam couldn't take his eyes off her all evening. During the dinner, the company presented awards for outstanding contributions over the past year. When they announced the Innovation Award, Daphne was shocked to hear her name called. She looked at Adam, who was grinning, and made her way to the stage on shaking legs. This award recognizes an individual who has fundamentally changed our company's direction and impact, the presenter said. Daphne Owens saw a need that others had overlooked and created a solution that has touched thousands of lives. Her Accessible Quality Initiative has not only been a massive commercial success, but has redefined what our company stands for. Please join me in congratulating this year's Innovation Award recipient. The room erupted in applause. Daphne accepted the crystal trophy with trembling hands and stepped up to the microphone. "I don't have a prepared speech," she admitted, her voice echoing through the ballroom. "But I want to say that this project was never about innovation for its own sake. It was about seeing people who had been invisible. It was about believing that everyone deserves quality, dignity, and the confidence that comes from feeling put together. And it was about working with a team and a leader who believed in that mission as much as I did." Her eyes found Adam in the crowd. "Someone once told me quietly that he was glad someone finally paid attention. That moment changed my life because I realized I had found someone who saw what I saw, who cared about what I cared about. This award isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who believes that business should be about more than profit, that fashion should be about more than trends, and that people should always come first." The applause was deafening. As Daphne left the stage, Adam met her at the stairs. In front of everyone, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her, and the crowd cheered. Later that night, back at the penthouse, they stood on the balcony looking out at the city. Daphne was still wearing her gown, and Adam had loosened his tie. The trophy sat on the table behind them, catching the light from inside. "I'm so proud of you," Adam said, his arm around her waist. "It feels surreal," Daphne admitted. "A year and a half ago, I was a junior analyst who showed up late to meetings. Now I'm accepting awards and giving speeches." "You were always this person," Adam said. "You just needed someone to give you the opportunity to show it." "You gave me that opportunity," Daphne said. "You believed in me." "Because you made it easy to believe," Adam replied, He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "Daphne, I need to ask you something." "What is it?" she asked, noting the sudden seriousness in his tone. Adam took a deep breath, and then, to her shock, he lowered himself to one knee. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a stunning ring with a center diamond surrounded by smaller emeralds. "Daphne Owens, from the moment I heard you speak in that meeting, I knew you were special. Every day since, you've proven me right. You've changed my company, you've changed my perspective, and most importantly, you've changed my heart. I can't imagine my life without you in it. I don't want to imagine it. Will you marry me?" Tears were streaming down Daphne's face. She pulled Adam to his feet, not caring about the ring, just needing to be in his arms. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Adam slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. "I talked to your mother," he admitted. "I asked for her blessing. She cried and told me I better take care of you." "You did?" Daphne asked, laughing through her tears. "When?" "Last month, when I said I had a business meeting upstate. I drove to Millbrook and spent an afternoon with her. I wanted her approval before I asked you." Daphne threw her arms around his neck and kissed him with everything she had. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other, the city sparkling below them and the future stretching bright and beautiful ahead. They were married 6 months later in a ceremony that was both intimate and perfect. They held it at a garden venue outside the city, with white flowers everywhere and string lights creating a canopy of stars. Daphne's mother cried through the entire ceremony, and Adam's sister served as one of the groomsmen alongside his best friend from college. Daphne's best friend Rachel stood as her maid of honor, and Patricia dabbed her eyes from her seat in the front row. The ceremony was short and heartfelt. When it came time for vows, Adam went first. "Daphne, you taught me to see again," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "You taught me that success means nothing if it's not built on caring for people. You made me remember why I started this journey, and you gave me something even more precious, a partner who sees the world the way I do. I promise to always pay attention, to always see you, to always value what matters to you. I promise to build a life with you that makes a difference. I promise to love you with everything I am for the rest of our lives." Daphne was already crying when it was her turn. "Adam, before I met you, I felt invisible so much of the time. Not worthless, just unseen. And then you looked at me and really saw me, and everything changed. You saw my potential before I fully saw it myself. You believed in my ideas, my passion, my dreams. You made me feel valuable not for what I could do for you, but for who I am. I promise to always be your partner in every sense of the word. I promise to care about what matters to you, to support your dreams, to see you as clearly as you see me. I promise to love you completely for the rest of my life." When the officiant pronounced them married, they kissed as husband and wife to thunderous applause from their guests. They walked back down the aisle together, grinning like fools, and Daphne couldn't remember ever being happier. The reception was joyful and relaxed. They had insisted on keeping it small, just close friends and family, and the atmosphere was warm and celebratory. Daphne's mother danced with Adam's father, both of them laughing. Rachel caught the bouquet and joked about being next. And throughout it all, Adam and Daphne couldn't stop touching each other, holding hands, stealing kisses, existing in their own bubble of happiness. During the father-daughter dance, since Daphne's father wasn't in her life, Adam's father stepped in. He was a kind man in his 60s who had been thrilled when Adam announced his engagement. "Welcome to the family, Daphne," he said as they swayed to the music. "Adam has never been happier than he is with you." "I'm the lucky one," Daphne replied. "Your son is an incredible man. "He is," his father agreed, "but you bring out the best in him. His mother, God rest her soul, would have loved you. You care about the same things she did." "I wish I could have met her," Daphne said softly. "She would have said you were perfect for him," his father said. "And she would have been right." When Daphne danced with Adam, she rested her head on his shoulder and let herself just feel the moment. The music, the warmth of his arms, the knowledge that this was just the beginning. "What are you thinking?" Adam murmured in her ear. "That this is the best day of my life," Daphne said, "and that I can't wait for all the days that come after." "We're going to have an amazing life together," Adam promised. "I'll make sure of it." "We'll make sure of it together," Daphne corrected. "That's what partners do." They honeymooned in Italy, spending 2 weeks exploring Rome, Florence, and the Amalfi Coast. They ate incredible food, visited ancient sites, and spent lazy afternoons in bed at charming hotels. They talked about their future, about the plans they had, both professional and personal, about the life they wanted to build. One evening, as they sat at a small restaurant overlooking the Mediterranean, Adam reached across the table and took Daphne's hand. "I've been thinking about expansion," he said. "For the company?" Daphne asked, taking a sip of her wine. "For our family," Adam clarified, and Daphne's breath caught. "I want children with you, Daphne. I want to raise kids who see people the way you do, who care about making a difference the way we both do. I want to teach them what really matters." Daphne felt tears prick her eyes again. She seemed to cry all the time now, but they were happy tears. "I want that too," she said. "So much." "Not right away," Adam added quickly. "Whenever you're ready. I just wanted you to know that's what I want our future to look like." "I'm ready whenever you are," Daphne said. "Maybe not this exact second, but soon. I want everything with you." They returned from Italy tanned and relaxed and ready to dive back into life. The company was thriving. The Accessible Quality Initiative had expanded into multiple new lines, and Daphne had been promoted again, this time to Vice President of Consumer Insights and Strategy. She had a large team now, an influential voice in company decisions, and the respect of the entire industry. But what mattered most to her was going home every night to Adam. They cooked dinners together, debated everything from business strategy to what movie to watch, made love in every room of the penthouse, and talked until late into the night about their dreams and plans. A year after their wedding, Daphne realized she was late. She took a pregnancy test in the bathroom of their penthouse, her hands shaking, and when it came back positive, she sat on the edge of the tub and cried with joy. She waited until dinner to tell Adam. She had ordered from his favorite restaurant and set the table nicely, and when he came home from work, she handed him an envelope. "What's this?" he asked, looking puzzled. "Open it," Daphne said, barely containing her excitement. Inside was a tiny onesie that said "Future CEO" on it. Adam stared at it for a moment, and then his eyes widened. "Daphne, are you telling me what I think you're telling me? We're having a baby," Daphne confirmed, and then she was in his arms and he was spinning her around and they were both laughing and crying at the same time. "When?" he asked, setting her down gently, his hands immediately moving to her still flat stomach. "About 8 months from now," Daphne said. "I just found out today." "We're having a baby," Adam repeated, his voice full of wonder. "We're going to be parents. Are you happy?" Daphne asked, though she could see the answer in his face. "I've never been happier in my entire life," Adam said. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her softly. "Thank you. Thank you for this gift, for this life, for everything." The pregnancy was smooth and uneventful. Daphne worked until her 8th month, and Adam fussed over her constantly, making sure she ate enough and rested and didn't overdo it. They decorated a nursery in soft yellows and greens, deciding to be surprised by the baby's gender. They interviewed pediatricians and read parenting books and attended birthing classes where Adam was the most attentive student. Daphne's mother came to stay for the last month of the pregnancy, and she and Adam bonded even more deeply. They would sit together while Daphne napped, talking about their hopes for the baby, about Daphne's childhood, about how to balance career and parenthood. "You're going to be a wonderful father," Deanne told Adam one afternoon. "You already love this baby so much, and it's not even here yet." "I can't wait to meet them," Adam admitted. "I keep trying to imagine what they'll look like, who they'll be. Will they have Daphne's auburn hair, her compassion, her brilliant mind? They'll have the best of both of you," Deanne said with certainty, "and they'll be so loved." Daphne went into labor on a Tuesday evening, 3 days before her due date. Her water broke while she and Adam were watching a movie, and suddenly, everything became a flurry of activity. Adam grabbed the hospital bag they had packed weeks ago, helped Daphne to the car, and drove to the hospital with the calm focus that made him such a good CEO. Labor lasted 14 hours. Adam never left her side, holding her hand, breathing with her through contractions, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. He told her how strong she was, how much he loved her, how proud he was of her. And when their daughter finally entered the world with a loud cry at 6 in the morning, both of them were sobbing. "She's perfect," the doctor said, placing the baby on Daphne's chest. "Congratulations. She was perfect, tiny and pink and screaming with a shock of dark hair in her father's nose." Daphne held her and felt her heart expand in ways she hadn't known were possible. "Hi, baby girl," she whispered. "We've been waiting for you." Adam leaned over them both, his hand gentle on the baby's head. "She's beautiful," he said, his voice thick, "just like her mother." They named her Emma Deanne Morrison, after both her grandmothers. Emma quickly became the center of their universe. Adam took paternity leave, an uncommon move for a CEO but one he insisted on, and they spent the first 3 months as a family of 3 learning how to be parents together. It wasn't always easy. There were sleepless nights and moments of doubt and the overwhelming responsibility of caring for someone so tiny and dependent. But there was also profound joy. Emma's first smile, the way she would settle immediately when Adam held her, the peaceful weight of her sleeping on Daphne's chest. These moments made everything else worth it. When Daphne returned to work, Morrison Industries had instituted new family-friendly policies, including extended parental leave and on-site childcare. Adam had pushed them through personally, insisting that if they claimed to care about working women, they needed to support working parents. "You're changing things again," Daphne told him one evening as they sat together watching Emma sleep in her crib. "Making things better for people." "We're changing things together," Adam corrected, echoing words she had said to him years ago. "That's what we do." Emma grew into a curious, happy toddler with her mother's empathy and her father's determination. She loved books and building blocks and helping in the kitchen. She was 2 when Daphne found out she was pregnant again, and 3 when her brother David was born. David was quieter than Emma had been, more contemplative, but just as loved. The family adjusted to being 4, and their home filled with laughter and chaos and an abundance of love. As the years passed, Morrison Industries continued to thrive, but Adam made sure that growth never came at the expense of their values. The Accessible Quality Initiative had expanded into a full division, and they had added programs supporting women entrepreneurs, sustainable manufacturing, and fair wages throughout their supply chain. The company was profitable, yes, but it was also making a real difference. Daphne balanced her role as a mother and as a top executive, and while it was challenging, she never felt she had to choose between them. Adam was a full partner in parenting, and they made decisions together about everything from bedtime routines to career moves. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they returned to the garden venue where they had married. It looked the same, still beautiful with its white flowers and string lights. They had left the kids with Daphne's mother and stolen away for a long weekend, their first real time alone since David was born. "You remember what I said in my vows?" Adam asked as they walked through the garden hand in hand. "That you promised to always see me," Daphne said. "To always pay attention to what matters." "Have I kept that promise?" he asked, and there was genuine worry in his voice, as if after 10 years and 2 children and a life built together, he still feared he might have failed her somehow. "Every single day," Daphne assured him. "You notice when I'm tired before I say anything. You remember small things I mention in passing. You value my opinions and my dreams. You see me, Adam. You always have." "Good," Adam said, pulling her close. "Because you saved me, Daphne. Before you, I was losing myself in success and forgetting what mattered. You reminded me. You showed me that the best life is one built on paying attention to people, on caring about what makes a real difference. I love you more today than I did 10 years ago, and I'll love you more tomorrow than I do today." "I love you too," Daphne said, her arms around his neck. "You gave me everything I didn't know I needed. Belief, opportunity, partnership, love. You made me feel seen when I had felt invisible. That's a gift I can never repay." "You don't need to repay it," Adam said. "You gave me the same gift. We saw each other, really saw each other, and everything else grew from that." They danced under the stars that night, swaying to music only they could hear, and Daphne thought about the journey that had brought them here. A rushed entrance to a meeting, a presentation about invisible women, a quiet comment that had changed everything. She had heard what he said. The CEO told her quietly, and she had realized someone had finally paid attention. And from that moment of recognition, of truly seeing and being seen, had grown a love that filled every corner of her life. Years later, when Emma was applying to colleges and David was in middle school, when Morrison Industries had become known as much for its ethics as its profits, when Daphne's programs had changed the lives of countless women, she would sometimes think back to that day. The day she had rushed into a meeting with coffee stains and scattered notes. The day a CEO had recognized in her presentation what he had been trying to say all along. The day she had realized someone finally understood. That day had been the beginning of everything. But standing there in the garden on their anniversary, with Adam's arms around her and a life full of love stretched out behind and ahead of them, Daphne knew the truth. It wasn't the beginning that mattered most. It was everything that came after, every choice to keep seeing each other, keep paying attention, keep caring about what mattered. That was the real love story, not the moment of recognition, but the decision to honor it every single day. "What are you thinking?" Adam asked, a question he had asked her thousands of times over the years. "That I would do it all again," Daphne said. "Every moment, every choice, every step that led me to you, I'd do it all exactly the same." "So would I," Adam said, and kissed her under the stars, just as he had 10 years ago when they had promised to build a life together. And they had. They really had.